think this girl does not deserve a feature-length film.
You want to trash that legacy? That company that now Disney has screwed up the last 5 years trying to please a small percentage of minorities in America? Yeah, we're sick of it. So the more you do this, Disney, Zegler, whatever her name is, yes, this is exactly the backlash you're going to get from parents who have kids who are your customers. You're supposed to win parents over. You're talking to kids, the parents pay for the tickets. You have to be a dummy as a marketer. If I'm Bob Iger, you know what we're doing? Emergency meeting. We're putting Snow White on hold for 2 years, and guess what? Pay her a couple $1 million, go away. We're going to bring another person to play this role because you just screwed this thing up.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story, just because like we cast a guy in the movie. Andrew Burnap, great dude. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood.
Disney's Snow White remake was intended to be a shining gem in the company's history of live-action adaptations. Instead, it spiraled into a storm of controversy, broken bonds, and complete box office devastation. At the core of this collapse stands Rachel Zegler, whose off-putting remarks about the timeless story sparked the outrage that exploded across Hollywood.
Large dump on half of the country, everyone who voted for Trump.
But you are not entitled to call for Trump supporters to be harmed. Like, you are actually not entitled to do that. And so let me just remind you, Rachel Zegler, of what the map looks like, just so you can understand when your Disney movie is coming out, how many people you are wishing harm upon. Like, this is America right now. I will love you through these 4 years as best I can. F Donald Trump. Yeah, totally stable thing for her to be posting, wishing harm upon Trump voters, wishing that we have no peace.
President Rachel Zegler also posted, F Trump kinds of posts on social media. She also said that she hoped that Trump supporters, quote, never know peace.
And they postponed the release of this thing, Ben, for a year because their star, Rachel Zegler, was so unlikable, told all Trump supporters that they could f off, excuse me, but she did. That was just in November. They didn't even know she was going to do that one.
Yet in the fallout, Andrew Burnap rises as the surprising voice of exasperation, apparently so irritated by Zegler's actions that he's virtually vowed never to collaborate with her again. It's not merely about hurt feelings or temporary on-set conflicts. This is about a movie that was set to earn hundreds of millions, but turned into one of Disney's most stunning flops. Critics attacked, fans rebelled, and social media became a war zone of blame.
They are pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infantada is the only global solution.
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing, before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
And you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie, and I believe it only made less than $1 million.
So she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
The new Disney boss babe, who is Rachel Zegler, the inverse of happy.
And directly in the spotlight is Andrew Burnap, an actor who dove into the chaos anticipating a career milestone, only to find himself evading scandal after scandal. Before the term disaster was linked with his name, Andrew Burnap was the pinnacle of Broadway excellence.
The movie is doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million, and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
The movie has a major identity crisis.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime. And let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely f***ing atrocious.
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
I sat through the whole thing. This was really bad. It was extremely leftist on every political dimension. Racial politics, sexual politics, class politics, regime politics. Its narrative was cowardly. It was just awful.
They say all you have to do to make your wish come true is let it echo, 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 echo.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphorical level?
A Tony Award recipient, he demonstrated his versatility and skill in numerous stage performances. He was celebrated for his fierce dedication to every character, the type of performer who pours every drop of zeal into his art. So when Disney reached out, offering him a role in a reimagined take on Snow White.
Who wants a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? It's the outrage.
You know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. She's not gonna be saved by the prince, and she's not gonna be dreaming about true love.
Oh my God.
And she came out and she said, I apologize. Like, I went too far. But it wasn't sincere.
Hardcore. They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
He envisioned endless opportunities. He'd frequently talked about desiring to move past the theater world and embrace the allure of Hollywood. Some dubbed him an emerging talent, an actor whose next major stride would surely land him on the big screen. Burnap himself appeared ecstatic, confiding to friends and peers that this was his breakthrough. Gossip suggests he didn't even push hard on pay negotiations.
Last week was a very big week, objectively a huge week. We had quite a few announcements as a first live-action film, which is Snow White and the Evil Queen. And that's me, I'm Snow White, which is so funny.
Controversy in Snow White. The dwarves have been eliminated in the live action.
Yeah.
Now it's Snow White and the 7 magical beings.
Wait, it's 7 and the magical beings.
Yeah,
They won't even say and the 7 dwarves.
No, because they're not dwarves. For right now, that's the only jobs that are there.
They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarves. But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it. The disability, like we're a disability group. You just erased that whole...
Because he thought the visibility alone would be invaluable. He yearned to be recognized not just by theater enthusiasts, but by households and global viewers everywhere. In discussions before the film's debut, Burnap's excitement was contagious. He laughed about vocal training, hinted at plot surprises, and seemed truly keen to breathe new energy into the Snow White legend. Everyone tracking his path believed this project would be the ideal launchpad, a chance for him to dazzle, earn global acclaim, and maybe even secure more prominent gigs later. Yet from the instant he stepped onto the set, the atmosphere wasn't the peaceful haven he'd pictured. Murmurs of discord spread, and it didn't take long for him to detect a grim shadow hovering above. The thrill he experienced shifted into unease, and day by day, that unease solidified into bitterness. Bitterness, reportedly linked straight to Rachel Zegler's demeanor. Little did Burnap realize, this dream role would soon cast a dark pall over his future. He was about to discover that sometimes the grandest stage can reveal the harshest realities and stain everything it grazes along the way. Rachel Zegler. Rocketed to stardom on the strength of her breakout in West Side Story, many hailed her as a new talent with impressive gifts, but this time, the limelight grew unforgiving. Instead of a heartwarming triumph, she landed in a whirlwind of online criticism that cast her as the villain of the Snow White remake. It all ignited when fans learned of her statements about the original 1937 cartoon. She dismissed the classic narrative as obsolete, suggesting it lacked depth for today's viewers. Instantly, traditionalists bristled, online detractors erupted, in anger, blasting her for dishonoring the Disney heritage that shaped countless childhoods. Social media posts turned vicious, with many fans labeling her words clueless. But Zegler's troubles didn't stop at a handful of casual remarks. Whispers began to surface that she'd battled with producers over artistic choices. Allegedly, she had strong opinions about how Snow White should be reimagined, pushing for alterations so bold that some wondered if the end result would even echo the tale people cherished for decades. Then, as if the uproar over her statements wasn't enough, tales of her aloof conduct on set leaked out. Crew members murmured about instances of arrogance, a certain entitlement that wore on everyone. Some near the production hinted she acted convinced the film would thrive solely due to her star power, regardless of how it strayed from tradition. This climate naturally laid the groundwork for clashes with fellow actors. Enter Andrew Burnap, keen and polished. He allegedly hit a metaphorical stone wall whenever he sought to work with Zegler. Instead of a teammate in creativity, it felt like he was facing someone who valued only her own perspective. And so, the roots of frustration took hold. Zegler's public scandals lit a blaze that only intensified behind closed doors. The production had hardly started, but the strain was already dense enough to stifle. For a film promising enchantment and awe, the set was morphing into a battlefield, one that Andrew Burnap found nearly impossible to traverse. By all reports, Andrew Burnap strove to stay tactful. He'd weathered the demands of live theater, so the turmoil of filming wasn't foreign to him. But what caught him off guard was the blatant animosity he sensed from Zegler. She was the leading figure, and her position felt inflexible. As practice continued, rumors spread that Zegler was tweaking scenes to match her vision, advocating for script shifts that highlighted her take on Snow White. Burnap, who'd pored over every line of the screenplay diligently, apparently found these abrupt revisions unsettling. One day, a crucial scene was suddenly dropped and swapped with a totally fresh sequence that Burnap first glimpsed mere supposed disregard for joint storytelling. To him, the production had been commandeered. Some say he ranted about how Snow White was ripped from the group's shared vision and morphed into a showcase for one star. He apparently felt that if the initial plan had endured, the film might have thrived, or at least dodged such a shameful crash. In those last days of press runs, the strain was evident. Burnap sometimes appeared stiff, forced to field queries with a tight smile. But, offstage, rumors claim he was furious and avoided Zegler unless essential. When pitched for joint interviews, he allegedly declined, citing time clashes. But most fans and pundits guessed the real cause. The two simply couldn't share space without the tension erupting. This flare-up, paired with the film's dismal run, put Burnap in a tight spot. On one side, he wanted to reclaim his pride and voice the truth about his ordeal. On the other, he knew slamming a prominent co-star could sink him in an industry that cherishes image and loyalty above all. Ultimately, it seems he picked candor over caution, unleashing remarks that left no doubt about his view. No matter how often Zegler or Disney tried to reframe the tale, the divide was too vast to mask. Burnap made it plain. Working with Rachel Zegler again was off the table. When the tale of Burnap's grievances hit the public, fans latched onto every whisper. Supporters lauded him for confronting what they called Zegler's conceit, while detractors slammed him for fueling more chaos. Hashtags swirled, with many aiming barbs at Zegler for not honoring Snow White's legacy. Others argued Burnap was overreacting, branding him unprofessional for airing grievances. Social media turned into a clash of opposing takes, memes, and quick video cuts emerged, blending Burnap's interview clips with vintage Snow White scenes, often underscoring the stark gap between a wholesome fairy tale and a drama-riddled set. Zegler's backers insisted any actress would aim to update a 1937 tale, while foes retorted her tack was an affront to the enduring magic Disney fans craved. In Hollywood's inner rings, the mess swiftly became the warning story of the moment. No, one wanted to join a project that could implode like Snow White. Casting directors grew wary around both Zegler and Burnap. While Burnap earned empathy from many who admired his stage roots, they also fretted he'd turn tricky after such a fallout. Disney, meanwhile, took heat from all angles. Some staff argued the studio should have curbed Zegler's drastic shifts, while others felt Disney should have shielded her from the brutal fan base. Internally, it was obvious they needed a big pivot if they hoped to rebuild trust in their live-action approach. Industry chatter hinted that marketing crews were rattled. Multiple top studios were said to be rethinking their lavish fantasy remakes, wary of facing a similar wreck. If a classic like Snow White could tank, nothing was safe. Agents began urging clients to probe deeper before joining reimagined takes on adored classics. As for Andrew Burnap, some insiders mused this debacle might oddly lift his career, casting him as a principled voice who bravely tried to safeguard the film's core. Others feared he'd face fallout for critiquing a lead actress, risking future parts in an industry that can be merciless. He stood at a crossroads, uncertain if the world would view him as a champion for exposing folly or a troublemaker who defied Hollywood norms. And so closes the saga that was meant to be Disney's grand revival of its first princess. Instead, Snow White became a cautionary tale steeped in strife, hubris, and a colossal box office bomb that rocked Hollywood. Andrew Burnap entered this venture brimming with hope, only to grow jaded by the turmoil he met. Rachel Zegler, once its star, now marks a tale that will echo in Hollywood lore for years, proof that even the mightiest studios can falter when arrogance and misjudged gambles collide. For anyone in Tinseltown eyeing a rewrite of a beloved classic, let Snow White stand as a lesson. One slip, and a dream can morph into a feared warning overnight.